When you're down to your last few dollars and the rent notice is taped to your door like a final warning shot from life, you start asking yourself dangerous questions. What would I do for money? Would I bend my morals if it meant staying afloat? For Madison James, the answer came wrapped in silk gloves, elegant, mysterious, and entirely unexpected. Madison was no stranger to struggle. She'd always prided herself on making it through college without help, scraping together a living as a freelance graphic designer, juggling gigs between design contests and short-term contracts. But this time was different. The apartment she shared with her best friend Riley was on the brink of becoming someone else's listing. One more missed rent payment, and they'd be out on the street. Riley had already sold her designer handbags. Madison had tried everything: job listings, cold emails, even handing out business cards at coffee shops like it was 2005. Nothing bit. And then Riley stumbled upon a modern-day fairy tale, or at least the trailer for one, a fake date app. Not escorting, not sugar daddy drama, just being a plus one to events. Elegant companionship for cash. Some of these guys are paying hundreds mads just to have someone sit next to them in a tuxedo-filled room and make them look less lonely. At first, Madison laughed. Then she cried. Then she signed up. Let's be honest, there's a kind of stigma around this. Society is quick to judge women who leverage their beauty or emotional intelligence to survive. But when you're in survival mode, judgment doesn't pay your light bill. Madison created a profile on a curated platform called Velvet Link. It prided itself on security, clear boundaries, and clients who weren't looking for anything beyond a poised, polite presence. She listed dinners, galas, and casual networking events as acceptable. No overnights, no intimacy, and no off-the-record arrangements. She set her rate at $500 per evening, not because she thought she was worth more than others, but because she didn't want to be booked at all unless someone really, really needed her. And someone did. The first message came 3 days later. A man named Nathaniel Carter, sparse profile, business consultant, needed a date for a philanthropic gala, the Lexington Trust fundraiser. Black tie, of course. He'd cover car service attire if needed and pay double her rate if the night went smoothly. It felt suspicious. Too easy. But desperation doesn't wait for perfect alignment. It waits for survival. What's interesting is how quickly humans can adapt. Madison borrowed a gown, had Riley help her with makeup, and showed up at the designated hotel looking like someone who had been born into that world. She wasn't. She had grown up in the Midwest, raised by a single mom who believed in hard work and couponing. But tonight she was someone else, someone poised, someone shimmering in the crystal light of an upscale ballroom. Nathaniel met her at the entrance, impeccably dressed, unreadable expression, but not unkind. "Madison," he asked. "Thank you for coming." That's all he said. No awkward small talk, no sleazy undertones, just quiet confidence and a gentleman's grace. He handed her an envelope discreetly. Inside $500 cash. She slipped it into her clutch and followed him into the crowd. Here's where things start bending, not in a twisted way, but in that strange way emotions sneak up on us when we're least prepared. Nathaniel wasn't just any rich guy trying to impress board members. He was tired, weary even. His father, it turned out, was the chairman of the very foundation he was attending, and the pressure to appear settled was mounting. For image, for politics, for succession. So this date, this charade, it was armor. Madison wasn't pretending for herself anymore. She was pretending to protect someone who seemed vulnerable, What started as a professional arrangement evolved that night. Madison noticed his subtle tics, how he smiled too wide when talking to older investors, how his fingers clenched slightly when people asked about his love life. He needed her, not just for appearance, but for peace. This isn't just a story about romance. This is about power and image. And what happens when someone chooses authenticity over pretense, even while trapped in a performance? Real-life parallels are everywhere. Think about CEOs forced to marry for optics, politicians parading picture-perfect families while living separate lives, or even your everyday couple pretending to be fine on social media while breaking behind closed doors. Madison's arrangement with Nathaniel wasn't a lie so much as a commentary on how much of our lives are staged to keep others comfortable. After the event, he surprised her. "You were amazing tonight," he said softly. "Would you be open to joining me for a few more events this month? I'll pay you well." You brought peace, peace, not excitement, not seduction, just peace. That word stuck. He proposed a monthly arrangement, a clean retainer, $3,000 a month to be his date, his public girlfriend for social functions. No strings, no touching unless required for optics. Just presence, just calm, just chemistry. And here's where we take a pause, not in the storytelling, but in our assumptions. Because what would you do in Madison's shoes? Would you take the money? Would you risk your emotional clarity to live a lie that could save your future? Because as Madison accepted, she found herself more than just paid. She was seen. They attended rooftop parties where billionaires toasted each other. She became fluent in philanthropic jargon. She learned who the media moguls were, which smiles were fake, and which deals were made over martinis, not contracts. But more importantly, she learned Nathaniel. He wasn't cold. He was guarded. Not from arrogance, but from years of being judged for being too soft, too human, too emotional in a world that rewarded cutthroat detachment. Their late-night dinners turned into soft confessionals. Madison told him about her financial struggles. He told her about his father, how every relationship he'd attempted had been undermined by interference threats or manipulation. One woman was paid off. Another was shamed in the press. Nathaniel wasn't afraid of love. He was afraid of losing someone again because of his last name. At a small Italian restaurant over dim lighting and quiet music, he said, "This isn't a performance anymore, Madison. I trust you. You're the only part of this circus that feels real." She didn't know what to say, so she just reached across the table and touched his hand, gently, like it meant everything. And it did. But life like stories doesn't like neat lines. Subscribe our channel for more powerful stories about love, self-growth, and human connection, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next emotional journey. The moment Madison touched Nathaniel's hand, something in both of them shifted. It was as if months of quiet tension had finally found a crack to escape through. She didn't mean for it to be romantic, at least not consciously, but the warmth that radiated through his palm told a different story. And when he looked up, meeting her gaze with something soft and vulnerable, she saw a truth no contract could contain. They both knew the risks. Emotion wasn't part of the deal. But when you're constantly pretending for the world, finding someone you don't have to fake it with becomes addictive. Still, neither of them said the words, not yet. Then came the storm. It started with a migraine, one of Nathaniel's stress-induced episodes that hit during a major fundraiser. Madison saw it in his eyes before anyone else did. A slight glaze, a twitch at the corner of his mouth, the way his fingers tightened on the champagne glass he wasn't drinking. "Are you okay?" she whispered, pretending to lean in flirtatiously. He nodded, but barely. Moments later, as his father introduced him to an investor, Nathaniel swayed. The color drained from his face. He nearly collapsed. Madison caught him before he hit the floor, her arms looping under his to steady him. She didn't think, she just moved. Gasps echoed around the room. His father, Edward Carter, stepped forward in alarm, but it was Madison who took control. "I'm taking him home," she declared, her voice calm but firm. Edward hesitated. "I'll call security, a driver." "No," Madison interrupted. "I've got him." And in that moment, everyone saw the truth. This wasn't a girl for hire anymore. This was someone who cared. She got him into a cab, wrapped his coat around him, and sat beside him the whole ride back to his penthouse. He leaned into her, eyes shut, jaw clenched against pain. She helped him inside, made him tea, turned down the lights, and massaged his temples while he lay on the couch. And when his breathing steadied, he whispered, "You don't have to do this." She whispered back, "Yes, I do." Real-life reminder, it's in the quietest moments that love reveals itself. Not in grand gestures, not in lavish dinners, but in staying beside someone when no one's watching. That night they crossed a line. Not sexually, not even physically beyond that first kiss, but emotionally. He kissed her gently, as if asking for permission, and she kissed him back because denying it would have been the biggest lie of all. They spent the night talking, not sleeping, just talking, about regrets, about dreams, about whether they were already too deep to walk away. And then came Edward's counterattack. Madison was at home the next day answering freelance emails when she received a call from a number she didn't recognize. It was Edward, cold, direct. "I'd like to speak with you, alone." He invited her to his office at Carter Enterprises. Top floor, skyline view, power etched into every piece of furniture. He didn't waste time. A folder lay open on the desk. Screenshots, her velvet link profile, their payment logs, chat messages between her and Nathaniel. "I have investigators," Edward said smoothly. It was remarkably easy to put this together. Madison's stomach dropped. "I'm not interested in scandal," he continued. "Not yet. But I am interested in my son's future. You, Miss James, are not a part of that." And then came the offer, 10 times what Nathaniel had paid her so far. Over $300,000. All she had to do was walk away, disappear. No explanation, just a clean break. It was in every way a bribe. She said no, but not because she wasn't tempted. That money could have changed her life, wiped out her debt, set her up for years. She said no because she loved Nathaniel. And yet, in the cruel irony of love, that's also why she left. She wrote him a message. Not in person, she couldn't bear it. Just a few lines. "This arrangement has gone too far. I didn't mean to hurt you, but I can't do this anymore. I quit. Take care." He called, texted, knocked on her door in the rain. She didn't answer. It was Riley who finally broke. "Mads, you love him. He deserves the truth." But Madison wasn't just protecting herself. She was protecting him from his father's wrath, from public humiliation, from everything that could be twisted and used against him. Until Nathaniel showed up at her door, soaked from the storm, eyes blazing. "Talk to me," he said. "Please." And she did. She told him everything, about Edward's threats, about the hush money, about how she couldn't live with herself if she became the reason his future was ruined. Nathaniel didn't get angry. He held her, and he said the words that mattered. "I love you too." Let's pause here. In real life, love doesn't always come with violins and confetti. Sometimes it shows up soaking wet with red-rimmed eyes and a broken voice. And that's enough. The next morning, Nathaniel stormed into Carter Enterprises Madison by his side and laid the envelope of hush money on his father's desk. "You can't buy her off," he said, "and if you try, I walk." Edward narrowed his eyes. "You'd throw away your legacy for a woman," Nathaniel replied. "I'd rather lose everything than live under your control." There are echoes here of so many real stories, of sons breaking free from family dynasties, of women refusing to be erased or belittled. It's not just fiction, it's aspiration. Edward didn't respond right away, but he didn't press either. He saw something in Nathaniel's face, a firmness that hadn't been there before. Reluctantly, he backed off. The scandal never came. Rumors, maybe. Whispers in society papers, but no headlines. Madison's career took off not because of Nathaniel, but because she'd earned it. Her designs caught the attention of a luxury branding agency. She landed her first big contract. She started saving money, building a future, together. And 1 year later, Nathaniel brought her back to the Lexington Trust Ballroom, the place where it all began. The lights were soft. A single table waited in the center of the room, candles flickering. He knelt. "Madison James," he said, "we started this as make-believe, but everything I feel is real. Will you marry me?" Her eyes filled. "Yes. 1,000 times, yes." And that, friends, is the power of choice, of standing up when it's easier to stay quiet, of walking away from money to protect love, of letting yourself be seen. Not every love story starts with fireworks. Some start with fear, with doubt, with a transaction. But the ones that last, they're the ones where both people choose each other, again and again. Not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. Have you ever had a moment where pretending led to something unexpectedly real? Please comment below and like this video if you believe the best love stories start with honesty. Subscribe our channel now for more powerful story-based videos every day. Life after the proposal wasn't a fairy tale, at least not in the Disney sense. There were no glass slippers or magic pumpkins, but there was laughter over mismatched coffee mugs, early morning grocery runs in sweats, and evenings curled up watching bad reality TV, while Madison sketched new design concepts and Nathaniel read through spreadsheets. The performance had ended, but the partnership had just begun. Nathaniel kept his promise. He took over more control of Carter Enterprises, but on his terms. No more curated dating lives, no more public puppet shows orchestrated by Edward's legacy-obsessed hand. He stood firm in meetings, built bridges with employees, and quietly carved out a version of leadership that felt authentic. And Madison. She didn't become Mrs. Carter in name, only she became a force. With Nathaniel's network opening doors and her talent speaking for itself, she landed a gig rebranding a national nonprofit. She stayed grounded, charging clients fairly, and mentoring young designers who, like her, were just trying to find their way out of survival mode. Riley, her best friend and original roommate, eventually moved into a better apartment and started her own online boutique. Sometimes over wine, the two women would laugh at how it all started with a fake date, listing a single message, an address borrowed from a cousin. But beneath the laughter was something else: gratitude for risks taken, for lines crossed, for discovering that love, when chosen again and again, not demanded or bought, has the power to rewrite even the most unlikely stories. And here's the thing: Madison and Nathaniel's journey isn't just about romance. It's a metaphor. It's about the courage to take imperfect steps when life gives you impossible choices. It's about redefining value not in dollars but in character. It's about learning that dignity isn't about how others see you, but how you see yourself when you walk away from something tempting but wrong. And it's a sharp reminder that sometimes the biggest plot twists in our lives come wrapped in choices we were scared to make. There are people out there right now in situations that look a lot like Madison's did. Jobless, tired, trying to keep the lights on, juggling bills, unsure of what their next move should be. And there are also people like Nathaniel trapped in privilege, yes, but imprisoned by expectation, reputation, and toxic power structures they didn't ask for. Both kinds of people deserve grace, because whether you're climbing up or clawing your way out, pretending to be okay, or hiding behind silk ties and shiny parties, everyone is just trying to survive until they find something real. And real is messy. It doesn't always arrive at the perfect time. It might come dressed like a business proposal or hidden behind a migraine, or even show up when you're least ready, like on the cold marble floor of your father's office, with your future slipping between your fingers, unless you grab it and say no, not this time. Real is brave and fragile and worth it. And if you've ever been where Madison was in that moment of choosing between what pays now and what feels right later, then this story is for you. Because choosing integrity over comfort isn't always rewarded immediately, but it is always remembered. Just like Madison remembered Nathaniel's hand trembling that night at the fundraiser. Just like he remembered the way she stood her ground in front of his father. These moments weren't cinematic. They weren't big, but they were everything. So here's the takeaway. Whether you're in your 20s trying to make rent, or in your 30s realizing your life has been a performance, or in your 40s still haunted by your father's shadow, there is always space to start again. There is always a way to turn the script. Sometimes it begins with a lie told for survival. Sometimes it begins with a quiet yes to a stranger with kind eyes and an envelope. Sometimes it begins with walking into a hotel ballroom and pretending to be someone you're not, only to discover the person you're becoming is who you were meant to be all along. So if you're watching this now, wondering if your story could ever take that kind of turn, it can, but only if you're willing to bet on two things: your worth and your heart. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe to the John Stories channel for more true-to-life narratives filled with emotion transformation and those unexpected turns that make life so heartbreakingly beautiful. Until next time, stay brave, stay real, and don't be afraid to rewrite the script. Because the best love stories, they don't start perfect, they start honest. Subscribe our channel for more powerful stories about love, self-growth, and human connection, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next emotional journey.